The Sephiroth Critical Threat event is live, and with it we get to challenge the man himself. I'm Jace, and in this Ever Crisis video, I'll be showing you my guide for the EX1 and EX2 versions of the fight. For this fight, I'm bringing Zack, Sephiroth, and Red 13. I decided to bring these three because I didn't want to bring completely my main team. I wanted to reduce my power just a little bit. Even though Sephiroth is definitely one of my main characters, Zack and Red 13 are not. So going into their gear, for Zack I'm bringing the Black Hound outfit, which brings boost HP and boost physical attack. I'm using an armor skin, so don't be confused by that. In the main hand we have his Black Whiskers weapon. In his offhand we have the Zweihander. For the limit break we're using a level 8 slash combo, so basically his main single target limit break. And then for Materia we have a 4-star Arrow Blow, a 4-star Quaker Blow, and a Triangle Sigil. Zack's Black Whiskers weapon allows him to have extra triangle break in this Materia slot, so he's going to be able to break 5 triangle sigils at a time, and the Materia gives some decent substats for him. For sub-weapons, I'm only allowing myself to bring 2 sub-weapons on my 2 DPS characters, so that's going to be Zack and Sephiroth. For Zack's sub-weapons, we have Matt's Killer Hornet at Overboost 5, and Lucia's Mad Minute at Overboost 3. If you're interested, here are the R abilities for Zack. Now on to Sephiroth. He's wearing his Kuja's Attire, boost HP and boost magical ability potency. In his main hand he's got the Edged Wings at Overboost 4. In his secondary slot he has Torn Wing, which is a free weapon that you can get from this event. So if you don't have it, just wait a couple of days, continue playing the event, and you'll eventually get it at Overboost 10. For Sephiroth's Materia we have a 4-star Aurora, we have a 4-star Quakera, and we have an X Ruinra with some decent substats. And in this Materia slot, Sephiroth's Edge Wings allows him additional break on X sigils, so he's going to be breaking 5 at a time. And we're running the Diamond Dust Summon at level 5. For Sephiroth's sub-weapons we have Matt's Absolute Royal at Overboost 5, and Tifa's Power Soul at Overboost 1. Here's Sephiroth's R abilities if you're interested in them. And last but not least we have Red 13. For Red 13 I'm rocking just his basic outfit. In his main hand we have the Platinum Collar, which is his AoE healing ability. It provides regen to the whole party. In his secondary slot, we have the Hell House Collar from the Critical Threat Hell House event. And for Red 13's Materia, we have a 4-star Akira, a 4-star Ruinra, and this is the one that has no sigil break, so this is purely for stats and damage. And a 3-star Barrier that I absolutely forget to use throughout the fight. I'll explain what I planned to do with it once we get into the actual battle, but just know if you don't have it, it's not necessary, or at least it might not be. For his sub-weapons, I allowed myself to bring 3, just because I wanted to make sure he had enough healing potency. He's not one of my main healers, so I just wanted to make sure I could give him a little bit more of a boost. We have the Chocobo Staff from the Halloween event. We have the Pumpkin Blaster, also from Halloween, basically the same weapon. And then we have Barrett's Hell House Cannon from the Hell House Critical Threat event. And here are Red 13's R abilities. So the reason we're bringing these Materia is that Sephiroth is weak during a couple of his stream phases to either wind damage or earth damage. So for our 2 DPS characters, we're bringing both of those elements. And then in order to break the sigils in those stream phases, which are going to be Triangle and X, we've of course brought those on Zack and Sephiroth respectively. I decided to bring Red 13 just because he's not one of my main healers, and I wanted to reduce my power level just a little bit. Alright, let's get into the fight. The first thing Sephiroth is going to do is he's going to open up with Heartless Angel. Heartless Angel targets one of your party members and reduces their HP to 1. There's no way to mitigate it, so there's no need to go into defensive stance. Since it's the beginning of the fight, I recommend just staying in attack stance so you can continue to build your attack gauge to max. And then once your attack gauge is maxed, after the ability has gone off, then you can go ahead and heal the person who got hit. This is one of the reasons that we brought a single target Kira to the fight. We want to be able to heal up that person as quickly as possible because Sephiroth is going to follow up that attack with Shadow Flare. Shadow Flare is an AoE magic attack that can kill you. It doesn't just reduce your HP to 1, it can absolutely kill you. So you want to heal up the person who got hit with Heartless Angel so that they can survive, and you want to swap to defensive stance so you can mitigate this damage. Once Shadow Flare has gone off, you have 2 options. You can use a single target heal on the person who got hit with Heartless Angel, just in case they're not topped off yet, or you can go into an AoE heal. I decided to go into an AoE heal, but I kind of wish I'd gone into a single target one first, just because Sephiroth's HP is looking a little bit sus here. Sephiroth is going to follow up Shadow Flare with a few single target attacks, and then an AoE attack. They don't deal a ton of damage, but if you feel the need to mitigate them, you can swap to defensive stance and swap back to attack stance without losing too much power. He's going to go into Octaslash, and you can tell who he's targeting with Octaslash because they'll get an orange square above their name, and you'll see that Sephiroth is targeting them next to that orange square. In this case, Zack's being targeted, so we use Sephiroth's Torn Wing ability to give Zack a physical defense buff. Right afterward, once we have the ATB, we're going to use a single target heal on Zack just to get him topped up. And we're going to go back into dealing damage to Sephiroth. Now, one of the things that Sephiroth will do is he'll go into stream phases, and he'll be infused with either wind or earth. When he gets infused with wind, he's weak to earth, and when he gets infused with earth, he's weak to wind. So what we do is we're going to jump over to our DPS characters, and we're going to force them to use whatever element Sephiroth is currently weak to. Throughout this stream phase, Sephiroth is going to be using various attacks against your party, especially AoE ones. I noticed that Zack was particularly low here, so for that AoE attack I swapped to defensive stance, and that definitely saved Zack's life. But, you know, it's not close at all. I mean, he's healthy. There's nothing to worry about. I'm also keeping an eye on how much time is left in the stream phase, because when it ends, if you haven't broken the sigils, he'll use Shadow Flare again. So what I decided to do was, if I thought it was getting a little close, I would go ahead and use one of the Ruin Ras that I had on Sephiroth or Zack to end the stream phase a little bit sooner. Throughout this fight, we're going to be using limit breaks to delay Sephiroth's attacks. That's a common strategy you'll see throughout a lot of my videos and other people's videos as they play at endgame. If you're having a little bit of trouble doing that, this is a great opportunity for you to practice that skill. Alright, so at this point in the fight, Sephiroth is just going to use some of those miscellaneous attacks again. Most of these attacks are single target, but there is one that's AoE. Just keep an eye on your health, be sure to heal up, because Sephiroth is going to go into another stream phase not too far from now. This time it's Earth Infusion, so he's weak to Wind. So we're going to be forcing Zack and Sephiroth to use Wind abilities, and again, keeping an eye on how many sigils are left, and if we need to switch over to doing some sigil attacks, we can do that. I didn't mention it in my gear overview, but for Red 13's Limit Break, I brought Lunatic High, which provides a mid-tier potency, magic defense, and physical defense buff to the entire party. I decided to use that here just because I remembered how much damage Sephiroth dealt during the previous stream phase, and I didn't want to have to worry about healing too much afterward. Here I decided the sigils were getting a little bit too high for how much time was left in the stream phase, so I decided to end it. And I'll swap over to Red 13, heal up the party, and with Zack and Sephiroth, I'll go back into dealing damage. Sephiroth only does 2 of those stream phases, where he makes himself weak to an element and resistant to another. At least that was the case in my run. I'm not sure if he does more, depending on how much damage you've been able to deal to him thus far, but I'd recommend just assuming he's only going to do 2 of them. His attack patterns are going to change after those 2 stream phases. I tried to use a Limit Break to push back Heartless Angel here, but compared to his other abilities, he's a bit sneaky with how fast he starts casting this, so I wasn't able to delay him. He's targeting Sephiroth, so again, I decided to stay in attack stance, since this attack reduces your HP to 1 pretty much no matter what you do. I follow up with a single target heal on Sephiroth, and Sephiroth follows up with another Octaslash. Now you might have noticed that every time he goes into Octaslash, he uses something called Boundless Strength beforehand. That gives him that framed physical attack buff that he has, and it also serves as a little bit of a soften rage over the course of the fight, because every time he uses it, that physical attack buff gets stronger and stronger. And what that means is, the longer you're in this fight, the harder Octaslash is going to hit, the harder all of his physical abilities are going to hit, and eventually he's just going to be able to kill you pretty much no matter what. So that's why we're doing a lot of focusing on maximizing our damage anywhere that we can, including those stream phases, and that's also why we're working so hard to delay his attacks as much as possible using these limit breaks and summons. We're going back into another phase where he's going to kind of pepper us with these miscellaneous attacks, but now, at the end of these attacks, he's going to use an ability called Hell's Gate. Hell's Gate is an AoE attack that also stuns your party, and we're going to want to swap to defensive stance for it. The trick here is that when he uses the ability, there's a little bit of a delay and then the damage hits. So make sure you don't switch out of defensive stance too early. The first time he uses Hell's Gate, he's going to follow up with Masamune in Waiting, which is this Diamond Sigil stream phase. You don't have to worry too much about it. The way that I recommend handling it is just when you get stunned by Hell's Gate, swap to whoever has the highest ATB and just hold it until that stream phase starts, and you should be able to break it pretty easily. He's going to follow up Hell's Gate and Masamune in Waiting with an Octaslash, so be ready to boost the physical defense of whoever's being targeted. And one thing to keep an eye on is that Hell's Gate reduces your party's physical defense by 2 tiers, so you're going to have to use more physical defense buffs in order to get the person being targeted by Octaslash into a safer place. I decided to use Lunatic High there just to boost physical defense a little bit more. I'm sure there are other ways that you can handle that. I mentioned in my gear overview that I brought a barrier materia. My original plan was to, whenever a person was being targeted by Octaslash, use the barrier materia and then follow up with Sephiroth's Torn Wing command ability, and that would leave the person having a high tier physical defense buff instead of mid tier. I never ended up doing it throughout the entire fight, but that's a strategy that you can use if you're still struggling to survive with just 2 tiers of physical defense up. From here, the fight starts to repeat a little bit. Sephiroth is going to use miscellaneous attacks, he's going to follow up with Hell's Gate, and then after Hell's Gate, he's either going to go into Masamune in Waiting, or he's going to go straight into an Octaslash. In this case, he's going into an Octaslash, so same deal, we're going to buff Zack's physical defense, make sure he's topped off so he can take this hit. Octaslash is getting stronger and stronger because of Boundless Strength, so we just have to keep that in mind and make sure that our characters are going to be able to survive these hits. He follows this up with Masamune in Waiting. Again, this shouldn't be too difficult to handle because it's only 4 Diamond Sigils. As long as you're in attack stance and your attack gauge is maxed, you should be able to break those sigils pretty easily with pretty much any ability that deals damage to Sephiroth. Whenever you see Magic Torrent, if you haven't recognized it already, that means he's going to follow up with a Shadow Flare. So in this case, we just want to make sure that our party's relatively healthy. The nice thing about him using Shadow Flare here is that Boundless Strength is only buffing his physical attack, not his magic attack. So Shadow Flare is going to deal just as much damage as it did at the beginning of the fight. We don't have to be too afraid of it just yet. Or I say just yet, but really at all. As far as I know, he doesn't have an Enrage ability. The soft Enrage for this fight is just that the physical attack on Sephiroth just keeps increasing until he eventually can one-shot your party members with Octaslash. Again, we're continuing to delay him using limit breaks and summons, and you can see we're getting pretty close to the end of the fight. Honestly, you've already seen all of the fight mechanics. We're just going to keep on executing until the enemy falls over. And with this last slashing thrust from Zack, that's the end of the fight. So hopefully you found the guide helpful. If you did, let me know in the comments. If there's anything that I missed or if you're having trouble, feel free to let me know in the comments as well, and if I have time, I'll try to help you out. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.